Welcome to the Health and Safety Orientation. You can follow along if you wish in your orientation handbook, which is located inside the resources section of Site Docs. Following the orientation, you will be required to complete two documents in Site Docs: the orientation checklist, which asks you for your profile information and outlines the areas covered in this orientation, and a short quiz. Please also complete all administrative paperwork that was sent to you by email or given to you in person. Ensure you have completed both forms in their entirety in Site Docs and have scrolled to the bottom and signed and saved each form. Also, be sure to complete any other paperwork in its entirety. Health and Safety Policy. Section 1 of the Health and Safety Program is the Health and Safety Policy. At the end of the day, our objective is to ensure all workers, including subcontractors, go home in the same condition they arrive for work in the morning. We will work cooperatively with all levels of the company to ensure compliance at all times and strive for an accident-free work sites. Workers have a right to a safe and healthy work environment, and we will provide that environment to the best of our ability. All workers, including subcontractors, are equally responsible for minimizing accidents on our work sites. A copy of our complete health and safety policy is posted on the safety board, in your employee handbook, and in the resources section on Site Docs. Senior management responsibilities. Familiarize yourself with all of the company safety policies and requirements of the safety legislation that are applicable to the company. The supervisor must, in turn, implement the policies and requirements to all employees to ensure work carried out under his or her supervision is safe and without risk of injury to self or other employees. Ensure employees are familiar with company and legislative safety requirements applicable to the duties to be performed. Ensure you delegate duties to employees that are trained to perform them safely and that have the employees abide by the company and legislative safety requirements while performing tasks. Regularly inspect work sites and correct unsafe conditions and/or acts. Report all accidents and incidents resulting from neglecting company and legislative safety requirements to the office. Responsibilities and accountability for safety. Workers carrying out their work in a manner that will not create a hazard to their own health and safety or the health and safety of other employees. All workers are expected to help new and inexperienced workers by pointing out potential hazards and preventative measures. Use all safeguards, safety equipment, and personal protective wear required by the company and legislation. Assist the owner/supervisor in the reduction and controlling of accident-producing conditions and unsafe acts on the worksite. Report all accidents, incidents, near misses, and/or injuries immediately to the project manager or supervisor. Failure to report this information. Do you know your three rights as a worker under the Saskatchewan legislation? Workers have the right to know the hazards at the workplace, how to identify them, and how to protect themselves. If any employee is unsure of a hazard they may be exposed to, he or she must ask their supervisor. Workers have the right to participate in identifying, solving, and correcting safety and health concerns in the workplace. This may involve assisting on inspection activities, working with the Occupational Health and Safety Committee or representative, or participating in meetings to resolve concerns. Workers have the right to refuse work if they have reasonable grounds to believe the act or series of acts they are to perform are unusually dangerous to his or her health or safety or any other employee at the workplace. The legislation requires that specific steps to be taken to resolve refusal to work. Should you find yourself in this position, please report it to your supervisor, who will then take it up with the management to resolve the matter. Hazard assessments. The pre-job hazard assessment is the process of the company uses to identify, assess, and control potential and existing hazards. Pre-job hazard assessment must be done for every job prior to starting any work and are always completed by a team of workers and management. A job hazard analysis must be completed for all critical tasks identified at the time of the pre-job hazard analysis. All workers must participate in or review the pre-job hazard analysis prior to the starting of work. The pre-job hazard analysis is the first document you should review and sign off on the first day you arrive on site for a new project. All controls must be in place for each identified hazard before any work begins. Management will occasionally participate in the formal pre-job hazard analysis at the start of a project. Hazard assessment. Every worker must participate in or review the HA every morning before starting work. If you review the form and find not all hazards have been identified and controlled, please inform your supervisor. Your supervisor will lead the completion of the hazard assessment. It will describe the tasks for the day with associated risks and controls. Ensure you understand it and sign off on it. All controls must be in place before beginning work. If a new task is to be performed where there is no safe job procedure already written in hazard identification as part of the process used to evaluate if any particular situation, item, or thing may have the potential to cause harm. The term often used to describe the full process is risk assessment. Identify hazards and risk factors that have potential to cause harm, hazard identification. Analyze and evaluate the risk associated with the hazard, which would be risk analysis and or risk evaluation. Determine appropriate ways to eliminate the hazard or control the risk when the hazard cannot be eliminated. Risk control. Overall, the goal of hazard identification is to find and record possible hazards that may be presented in your workplace. It may help to work as a team to include two people to familiarize themselves with the work area. This way you have assessments should be done by a competent person or team of individuals who have a good working knowledge of the situation being studied. Include either on the team or as sources of information the supervisors and workers who work with the process under review, as these individuals are the most familiar with the operation. In general, to do an assessment, you should identify hazards, determine the likelihood of harm such as injury or illness occurring, and its severity. Consider normal operation situations as well as non-standard events such as maintenance, shutdowns, power outages, emergencies, extreme weather, etc. Review all available health and safety information about the hazards such as safety data sheets, SDS, manufacturer's literature, information from reputable organizations, results of testing, workplace inspection reports, records of workplace incidents, accidents, including information about the type of frequency of the occurrence, illness, injury, near miss. Understand the minimum legislation requirements for your jurisdiction. Identifying actions necessary to eliminate the hazard or control the risk using the hierarchy of risk control methods. Evaluate to confirm if the hazard has been eliminated or if the risk is appropriately controlled. Monitor it to ensure the control continues to be effective. Keep any documents or records that may be necessary. Documentation may include detailing the process used to assess the risk, outlining any evaluations, or detailing how conclusions were made. To be sure that all hazards are found, look at all aspects of the work and include non routine activities such as maintenance, repair, or cleaning. Look at the physical work environment, equipment, materials, products, etc., that are used. Include how the tasks are done. Look at injury and incident records. Talk to the workers. They know their jobs and its hazards best. Include all shifts and people who work off site, either at home or on the other job sites, drivers, teleworkers, with clients, etc. Look at all the way the work is organized or done. Include experience of people doing the work, systems being used, etc. Look at foreseeable, unusual conditions. For example, possible impact on hazard control procedures that may be unavailable in an emergency situation, power outage, etc. Determine whether a product, machine, or equipment can be intentionally or unintentionally changed. Example, a safety guard that could be removed. Review all the phases of the life cycle. Examine risks to visitors or the public. Consider the groups of people that may have a different level of risk, such as young or inexperienced workers, persons with disabilities, or new or expectant mothers. A common way to classify hazards are by these categories: biological, bacteria, viruses, insects, plants, birds, animals, and humans, etc. These sources can cause a variety of health effects ranging from skin irritation and allergies to infections. Example, tuberculosis, AIDS, cancer, and so on. Chemical depends on the physical, chemical, and toxic properties of the chemical. Ergonomic repetitive movements, improper set of workstation, etc. Ergonomics is the science of matching the job to the worker and the product to the user. Physical radiation, magnetic fields, temperature extremes, pressure extremes, high pressure or vacuum, noise, vibration, etc. Physical agents are sources of energy that may cause injury or disease. Psychological, stress, violence, prevention, bullying, mental health, aging workers, etc. And safety. Slipping, tripping, hazards, inappropriate machine guarding, equipment malfunctions, or breakdowns. Priority ranking. Ranking or prioritizing hazards is one way to help determine which the risk is most serious and thus which to control first. Priority is usually established by taking into account the employee exposure and the potential for incident, injury, or illness. By assigning a priority to the risk, you are creating a ranking or an action list. There is no simple way to determine the level of risk, nor will a single technique apply in all situations. The company has to determine which technique will work best for each situation. Ranking hazards requires the knowledge of the workplace activities, urgency of situations, and most importantly, objective judgment. For simple or less complex situations, an assessment can literally be a decision or brainstorming session based on knowledge and experience. In some cases, checklists or a probability matrix can be helpful. For more complex situations, a team of knowledgeable personnel who are familiar with the work is usually necessary. Hazard controls. The hierarchy of controls is a step by step approach to eliminating or reducing workplace hazards. It ranks controls from the most effective level of protection to the least effective level of protection. When choosing a control method, start from the top of the inverted pyramid, assess the feasibility of the first layer of controls, elimination, before moving on to the second layer, substitution. Continue this process until you reach the bottom of the pyramid and have identified as many controls as needed that will adequately protect the worker from the hazard. The hierarchy of control is shown in the graph to the right. Elimination. Remove the hazard from the workplace. Elimination is the process of removing the hazard from the workplace. It is the most effective way to control the risk because the hazard is no longer present. It is the preferred way to control a hazard and should be used whenever possible. Substitution. Replace the hazard, example, hazardous products, machines, etc., with less hazardous ones. If eliminating a hazard is not possible, substitution is the next control method that should be considered. Substitution is an act of replacing something with another thing. In this case, a hazard is replaced with a less hazardous one. The hazard and risk associated with the alternative must be thoroughly assessed and determine if it is an appropriate replacement. Care must be taken to ensure that the new hazard is actually lower and that one hazard is not being replaced with another that is just as harmful or more harmful. Engineering controls include design or modifications to plants, equipment, ventilation systems, and processes that reduce the source of the exposure. Engineering controls are methods that will remove hazard at the source before it becomes in contact with the worker. Engineering controls can be built into the design of a plant, equipment, or process to minimize the hazard. Engineering controls are a very reliable way to control work exposures as long as the controls are designed, used, and maintained properly. Administrative controls that alter the way the work is done, including timing of work, policies, and other rules, and work practices such as standard and operating procedures, including training, housekeeping, and equipment maintenance and personal hygiene practices. Administrative controls involve developing procedures to ensure the work is conducted in a way that minimizes the hazard. Examples including developing or changing policies, implementing or improving training and education, and developing or enhancing work practices and procedures. Administrative controls are ranked lower to elimination, substitution, and engineering controls because this method does not necessarily remove or reduce the hazard from the workplace. For example, administrative control limit workers' exposure by scheduling shorter work times in contaminant areas or by implementing other rules. These control measures have many limitations because the hazard itself is not actually removed or reduced. Administrative controls should be used in combination with other control measures where possible. Personal protective equipment. Equipment worn by individuals to reduce exposure such as contact with chemicals or exposure to noise. Personal protective equipment, PPE, refers to anything workers wear to help protect them from the workplace hazard. The choice of what type of PPE is required must be based on specific hazard found at the workplace. Sometimes a hazard cannot be controlled using a simple type of control method. If a hazard cannot be eliminated, a combination of controls may be required. For example, using a scissor lift instead of a ladder substitution. Workers should be trained on the safe use of the equipment and follow safe work procedures. Administrative control when working at heights, workers should also use PPE, including a full body harness and lanyard attached to the anchor point. There is a risk of injury from falling. Driving in the winter for work. Controls may include not driving during extreme winter weather elimination. Determine if there are any other options to drive, such as public transportation, substitution, use of winter tires, engineering, and driver training administrative. The supervisor and crew discuss the work to be done on the day of the job. Together, they identify the job steps, identify the hazards associated with each step, assess the levels of risk of each hazard, and identify and put in place the controls to effectively control the risk. The supervisors prepare and leads hazard assessment discussions, documents this information on the form prepared for this purpose, submits the document for analysis and review, and makes the completed form available to the crew. Each worker stops and thinks about hazards, risks, and control while working. Specifically assigned personnel review the hazard assessment data to identify ways to reduce hazards and risks on the ongoing basis. HAs are done on the jobs at the beginning of a new job or new shift. When new workers come on site, when the information about the work changes, example, changed plans, unexpected characteristics of the task, such as a new configuration of equipment, and whenever job site conditions change, weather, availability of tools, etc. Safe work practices. Safe work practices are a set of positive guidelines or do's and don'ts on how to perform a specific task that may not always be done in a certain way. All safe work practices are located in the company Occupational Health and Safety Manual, which is located on site and in the resources section of Site Docs. Please review the safe work practices located in the resources section of Site Docs and ensure you are familiar with the company's safe work practices. As well, when in need, look up and review the safe work practices relevant to the task you're performing. Getting the job done safely means workers must follow safe work practices. Management and workers are involved in the development and a review of safe work practices. Workers will review relevant SWPs at the tool. Safe job procedures. SJP is a written, specific, step-by-step description of how to complete a job safely and effectively from start to finish. All SJPs are located in the company Occupational Health and Safety Manual, which is located on site and in the resources section of Site Docs. Please review the safe job procedure located in the resources section of Site Docs and ensure you are familiar with the company's safe job procedures. As well, when the need arises, look up and review the safe job procedure relevant to the task you're performing. Getting the job done safely means workers must follow SJPs. Management and workers are involved in the development and or review of safe job procedures. Workers will review company rules. Company rules are an integral part of every safety program. A rule is a basic directive implemented by the company. The rules outlined below are developed internally. Violations will be treated as performance issues and addressed through the progressive discipline process. Every worker has a role to play in company rules. Managers, senior management will be responsible for developing and reviewing the safety rules. Supervisors are responsible for enforcing the rules, and workers are responsible for following the rules. The following company rules are subject to the Progressive Disciplinary Action Plan. Arriving for work or remaining at work when your ability to perform the job safely is impaired is strictly prohibited. All work shall be carried out in accordance with the appropriate safe operating practice, procedure, regulations, and your supervisor's direction. Long hair is to be tied up or put in a hairnet worn underneath the hard hat. Drivers and passengers in the company's vehicle must use seat belts at all times. operate all vehicles and mobile equipment in accordance with job site rules and highway regulations. Report any changes in the status of your vehicle's license to your supervisor immediately. PPE, safety glasses, and steel-toe boots must be worn at all times on all company job sites, including the shop and yard. Hard hats are required where there is a risk of injury to the head, and at a minimum when working off-site and when walking around the yard. Do not carry in the hard hat while wearing it on. Do not alter personal protective equipment in any way. Rings and other jewelry must be removed on construction sites. Use good personal hygiene and wear appropriate clothing. Every worker shall keep his or her work area neat, clean, and orderly. Only those tools that are in good repair with all guards and safety devices in place are to be used. Refer to maintenance schedule. You must perform a circle check before using a company vehicle. No smoking on any company work sites, only in designated areas and at designated times. Report to your supervisor all accidents resulting in injury and or property damage, including motor vehicle accidents as well as near misses. Damaging, disabling, or interfering with safety, firefighting, or first aid equipment is prohibited. Practicing in harassment and or discrimination is defined under the company's harassment policy is prohibited. You must not have any involvement in the sale, purchase, transfer, use, or possession of alcohol or prohibited substances while on company premise and job sites, or be under the influence, including hangovers while at work. Processing or using firearms or other weapons on company premises or job sites is strictly prohibited. Practical jokes, horseplay, fighting, and the misuse of companies' equipment for purposes of unintended humor are prohibited. Theft, vandalism, fraud, embezzlement, dishonesty, assault, harassment, unwillful endangering of other employees, unauthorized use of company facilities and or equipment, excessive absenteeism, breach of confidentiality or trust, insubordination, and failure to notify the company of revoked or lapsed licenses, memberships, and or certificates, including driver's licenses, are grounds for termination. Corrective action may be necessary if an employee neglects the responsibilities conducted on this policy. The following company rules: progressive three-step disciplinary procedure to deal with the unacceptable employee performance and conduct issues. Each incident is to be evaluated with discretion. Progression through the following procedures will be altered depending on the severity and circumstances of the situation. Verbal warning: your supervisor will advise you of an official verbal notice of the job performance or conduct requiring change. A written record of the details of the discussion will be placed on your employee file. Written warning: you will receive written notice of discipline outlined in the description of the job performance or conduct requiring change. A description of improvement required, time limits in which improvement must occur, and a notice of how further similar incidents will result. You will be required to sign acknowledgement of the notice. One copy will be placed in the employee's file and one copy will be for the employee to keep. Suspension or termination: you will be immediately suspended by a supervisor for a period of time as determined by the supervisor or manager, or termination will be considered as termination with just cause. Where there is just cause is defined by the law. Your employment can be terminated without notice or pay in lieu of notice. The employee will receive a letter outlining the reasons for the termination, and a copy will be placed in the employee's file. In most cases, all employees will be given 3 warnings prior to their employment being terminated. The 3 warnings may be in any combination of verbal and or written form. Depending on the seriousness of the incident, the warning process may be passed completely. Example: fighting, gross negligence, harassment, horseplay, theft, etc. The immediate suspension or dismissal implemented. Grounds for dismissal. The following are prohibited on all company property and all company work sites: threatening physical harm with a weapon or using a weapon to physically harm another person, sabotage or damage to company property, fighting, possession or use of drugs, alcohol, or improper use of prescription drugs and or under the influence, impairment of drugs, alcohol, or prescription drugs. It is the policy of the company to have all workers use the proper PPE when and where required as follows. Eye protection. Appropriate eye protection will be provided. Safety glasses are required for work on customers' sites and the shop floor, or where there is a risk of injury to the eyes. Goggles or face shields will be provided and must be used when cutting, grinding, or using a chisel. Safety footwear. CSA approved steel toe boots. Footwear is to be provided by the employee and is to be worn at all times on all job sites, including shop and yard. Hard hats. CSA approved hard hats will be provided and must be worn when there is a risk of injury to the head. It is required at all times when there is overhead work going on and when you are outside the shop or a building. Hearing protection. Hearing protection will be provided and must be worn where noises levels exceed 85 decibels. Hand protection. Full fingered gloves are to be used if there is a risk of hand injuries. All PPE utilized by this company shall meet the requirements of the OH&S regulations and CSA standards. All PPE used by this company shall be maintained in accordance with manufacturer's instructions and requirements. Employees will be required to inspect all company-issued PPE before each use. All PPE that is of questionable reliability, damaged, or in need of service or repair shall be removed from service immediately. All PPE removed from service must be tagged out of service. It will not return to service until repaired and inspected by a qualified competent person. All specialty PPE shall be supplied by the company and will be maintained according to the manufacturer's instructions. No PPE shall be modified or changed contrary to the manufacturer's instructions, specifications, or OH&S regulations. Visitors. Our company often has clients or potential clients that want to view the work that we do in the shop. The following applies to all visitors. Visitors are not allowed in the shop or yard areas unless accompanied by a company supervisor. Visitors must wear a hard hat and safety glasses. Visitors must complete the sign-in and sign-out sheet. Visitors must be provided a short orientation as to muster point and emergency procedures. Foot protection. Protect against foot and ankle hazards in the workplace. Protect against compression, puncture injuries, ankle injuries, and impact injuries. Boots must be laced up and tied securely to give proper support. A protective boot dressing will also help boots last longer. A high-cut boot will provide better ankle support. Defective footwear such as exposed steel caps should not be worn. Modified footwear will invalidate safety protection levels. You should be sure you have a grade 1 green triangle, which are designed for construction and provide protection against higher impact. This grade of foot protection also gives ankle support. The two types of eye protection are basic eye protection, which include eye cup goggles, monoframe goggles, and spectacles with or without eye shields. Face protection. This type includes metal mesh face shields for radiant heat or hot and humid conditions, chemical and impact resistant face shields, plastic, welder shields and helmets with appropriate and specified covers, and filter plates and lenses. Comfort and fit are important in this selection of safety eyewear, as the wearer often uses this type of protection for an extended period of time. This may require the use of coatings, vents, or special adaptations to prevent fogging when fitted over regular prescription eyewear. Eye and face protection. Do's. Ensure your eye protection fits properly close to your face. Clean your safety glasses daily, more often if needed. Store safety glasses in a safe, clean, dry, impact protected place when not in use. Replace pitted, scratched, bent, or poorly fitting PPE for eye and face protection as the visual acuity and the protection have been compromised. Basic eye protection should be worn with face shields. Face shields alone are not enough to fully protect the eyes from work hazards. When eye and face protection are required on the work sites, the superintendent may seek advice on the appropriate combination and configuration from the OH&S office, SDS, and our safety equipment supplier. Eye and face protection don'ts. Modify eye or face protection. Use eye or face protection that does not have a CSA or ANZI certification stamp on it, usually on the inside of the frame. Hardened glass prescription lens and sport glasses are not an acceptable substitute for proper required industry safety eye protection. Contact lenses should not be worn on site. Soft lenses in particular may trap or absorb gases or particles causing eye irritation. Hard contact lenses may break into the eye when hit. Selection, use, care, and maintenance of PPE. Hearing protection. As a rule of thumb, you need to wear hearing protection when you can't carry on a normal conversation at a normal volume of voice 3 feet apart. Any sound level over 85 decibels requires hearing protection. Hearing loss can be very gradual, happening over a number of years. The most common types of hearing protection used in construction are earplugs and earmuffs. Different styles of hearing protection need to be available at the sites, as different people have different head and ear sizes and types. Earplugs should be rolled into your fingers prior to insertion of softening them and ensure a good fit. Earmuffs need to be sealed tightly around the ears. If properly fitted, ear protection should take the sharp edge off noise. If this sharp edge is not reducing the level of noise sufficiently for comfort, or if the workers have pain, ringing, headaches, or discomfort in their ears, your site requires the advice of an expert. Workers should have their hearing tested every year, twice a year if they work in a high noise level area. For further information, look at the CSA standard hearing protectors. Selection, use, care, and maintenance of PPE. Head protection. Head protection is vital on any work site. Safety headwear is designed to protect the head from the impact of falling objects, bumps, and splashes from chemical substances, and contact with energized equipment and objects. Head protection is only effective if it is maintained and used properly. Only CSA approved head protection should be used. For construction application, a Class B hard hat is recommended, which has the required dielectric strength. All must meet the CSA or ANSI requirements for Class B hard hats. This type of protective headwear has the following parts: a protective outer shell and an internal suspension to absorb impact and blows. Bump caps are not considered appropriate protective headwear for construction applications. Head protection dues. Take any hard hat out of service if there is any question to its effectiveness. Replace hard hat if they have pits, holes, and cracks or are brittle. Replace a hard hat that has had any type of impact, even if there is no damage seen. Follow manufacturer's instructions. Head protection don'ts. Structurally modify hard hats, example removing peaks. Use solvents to clean the shell. Paint the shell. Use a liner that contains metal or any other conductive material. Put anything inside the hard hat while wearing it. Please refer to Section 91, Protective Headwear, in the Occupational Health and Safety Regulations for more information. Selection, use, care, and maintenance of PPE, limb and body protection. Due to the nature of the construction workplace and the number of different hazards, it's not possible to cover specialized limb and body protection in detail. These types of hazards are known as job exposures: exposure to fire, temperatures, extremes, body impacts, corrosives, molten metals, cuts from sharp or abrasive materials. PPE in the category would be items such as leg, arm, chin, and belly guards, especially hand pads and grips, leather aprons and leggings, full body suits, flame and chemical resistant clothing, various types of plastic boot covers, and overshoes. Selection, use, care, and maintenance of PPE, fall protection. Harness, lanyards, lifelines. A body harness is recommended to prevent further injuries that result from a sudden stop at the end of a fall. A shock absorbing lanyard can also minimize these sudden stop injuries. In choosing the length of the lanyard, it is important to add the maximum deployment length of the lanyard to the length of the lanyard plus the 5 feet allowed for the person to ensure the fall distance still leaves the attached person clear from the ground. Otherwise, the person will fall on the ground. Do not, under any circumstance, use your lanyard as a service line. To ensure the use of your body harness to the maximum benefit, conduct and document a pre-use inspection before putting on your harness. Ensure you have proper lanyard for the system you are using. Use webbing type harnesses that have greater strength factors as opposed to leather. Use only the manufacturer's components for replacing parts. Ensure the harness fits snugly and securely as per recommended directions. Ensure that the anchor points will support the load in the event of a fall. This is the load in motion or dynamic load, which differs greatly from a static load, body weight, and clothing. Ensure all lines have thimbles. Ensure only properly rated fasteners and etc. are used with all fall protection systems. The system is only as strong as its weakest component. Use the system only as designed for the pre-approved engineered operations and tasks, as per manufacturer's recommendations. Preventative maintenance policy. Our policy states we will maintain a program of preventative maintenance, ensure that workers use tools and equipment properly, and that the equipment and facilities are properly inspected, maintained, and kept in good repair. Ensure proper monitoring of tools and tool maintenance. A record of tools will be kept and updated. All employees are responsible for regularly checking all tools, vehicles, and equipment before use. All employees must adhere to applicable regulations, standards, and manufacturer's specifications. If a tool is damaged or found to be defective, The tool must be tagged out of service. Description of the defect provided, if possible. Removed from the service until repair or replacement takes place. Immediately report the need for the repair to the supervisor. Supervisors ensure that all preventative maintenance is carried out by qualified personnel. Supervisors responsible for current records for all equipment, tools, and vehicles serviced or repaired. Daily pre-trip inspection must be conducted and documented on each piece of the company equipment. A circle check must be conducted before each use of a company vehicle. Training and communication. The company will provide and ensure that all employees participate at minimum in the following safety training. Safety orientations for newly hired person is mandatory before starting work. Workers returning after a period of absence of 6 months or longer will be required to repeat the full orientation. Workers returning after a seasonal layoff will be required to do a refresher training. All workers will complete WMIS training. Workers working at heights over 10 feet will have fall protection training. Workers working in confined spaces as defined in legislation will have confined space training. Workers operating equipment will Orientation. All new employees and subcontractors will be provided with information about policies, programs, and procedures. An orientation checklist will be completed and signed off by both the worker and the trainer. You will be required to complete a short exam following this orientation, which will be kept on file. Copies of all training certificates and your driver's license need to be provided at your orientation. A safety meeting will be conducted each quarter and all workers must attend. Toolbox meetings will be held once a week and on each site, led by the supervisor. This meeting is to be conducted and documented with workers' signatures to show attendance at the meeting. The Toolbox meeting agenda will include a review of all relevant practices and procedures, review of the previous inspection reports and results, and the review of relevant or current incidents and near misses at the site. Workers should take this opportunity to express any health and safety concerns they have. Supervisors should refer to relevant legislation when assigning work. Attendance at the meeting and Toolbox meetings is mandatory. A copy of the Saskatchewan Employment Act and OH&S regulations is located at the office and on every site. Senior management should periodically attend safety meetings and Toolbox meetings. Inspections. The objective of the inspection policy is to control hazards in the workplace. All facilities, including job sites, office, and yard areas, as well as tools and equipment, are included in the inspection program. Employees and supervisors are responsible for conducting informal inspections on an ongoing basis in their areas of responsibility. Supervisors or designates are responsible for conducting formal inspections of their scope of work and work area on a monthly basis. These inspections must be documented. An inspection should never be done by just one person alone. A team should be put together of at least one management and one worker. If you are asked to participate in the inspection process, you must cooperate. The inspection will be led by a supervisor who will record the results of the inspection. Deficiencies must be assigned a person for corrective actions and advice of the date the corrective action must be completed by. The result of the inspection will be shared at the next toolbox meeting and will be posted on the safety board. Senior manager. Investigations. An investigation is the action taken in response to a serious injury or property damage, or an event that could have produced serious injury or property damage. All incidents, including injury, property damage, and near misses, will be investigated. A near miss is defined as an unplanned event that did not result in injury, illness, or damage, but had the potential to do so. Those times when your heart pounds a million miles a minute, or when something happens and you know you were lucky no one was hurt. A near miss has no injury and no property damage. It's a close call. It is every worker's responsibility to report all incidents immediately to their supervisor. The supervisors, together with the safety supervisor, will conduct the initial investigation, determine causes, recommend corrective action, and submit reports. Management will review an incident report and ensure appropriate corrective action is implemented and is effective so as to prevent reoccurrence. Workers must report all incidents, no matter how minor they are, to their immediate supervisor and safety manager. No worker is permitted to drive themselves for medical aid. Your supervisor or someone appointed by them is to drive the injured worker for medical aid. Injured worker is to inform the attending physician that the company has a return to work program that accommodates modified duties. We have a return to work program which requires all workers to attend a full day of work following the injury, either full duties or modified duties, unless the arrangements have been made with the safety manager. All workers must provide a doctor's note if they attend a healthcare professional. The note is to either allow the worker back to work full duties with no restrictions, outline modified duties, or state time off work. Workers must understand that they will not be paid by either the company or WCB if they do not have a doctor's note that allows them to be off work. Most work refusals are handled in the field at the time they are made by simply providing the worker with more information or reassigning the worker to another task. However, if a refusal to work cannot be resolved in the field, it should be referred to the management for a resolution. Determining the cause of the incident helps prevent similar or more serious incidents from happening in the future. The supervisor should follow up to ensure recommendations have been completed and are effective. The result of the investigation will be shared at the following safety meeting or toolbox meeting. All incidents, injuries, equipment or property damage, and near misses need to be reported to your supervisor immediately. Responsibilities. Number 1, all employees shall report incidents to their immediate supervisors. Number 2, supervisors shall conduct initial investigations determining causes, recommended actions, and submit their reports to management promptly. Number 3, management shall review all incident reports and ensure that appropriate corrective action is implemented. Number 4, in the case of refusal to work that cannot be resolved by the worker and the supervisor, they shall be referred to the company's management and the occupational health representative. Emergency preparedness. An annual fire drill will be conducted once a year. A list of trained first aiders is located on the shop safety board and on each site. An air horn is located in the shop and on each site. The alert for shop work is one long blast indicates an incident has occurred and everyone should stop working until further notice to go back to work. The alert for evacuation to the mustard point is 3 short blasts. Indicates a fire or other emergency requiring evacuation. If you are on site, please call for help by either yelling or using a cell phone. An injured worker will be transported by ambulance 911 unless the injury is minor and the worker can be transported in a vehicle by the supervisor. Emergency phone numbers are posted on the safety board and in the shop and each site. Familiarize yourself with the emergency action and fire prevention plan for your building or work area. Familiarize yourself with the stairway locations in the building, the stairways or exits serving your floor. Have emergency telephone numbers clearly posted. Do not prop or wedge stairwell doors in the open position at any time for any reason. Report and or correct hazardous conditions in your work area. Report all fires, no matter how small. Submit recommendations concerning any unique evacuation or safety problems in your work area to your supervisor. Procedure: fire evacuation inside. Stay calm, do not panic. Stop your task at once. Alert others in the area. Active the fire alarm. Blow whistle. Call 911. Give location, including address or legal land description. Describe situation, smell of smoke, extent of fire, what's burning. If you cannot safely extinguish the fire, evacuate the area. Close all doors, as leave do not lock them. Turn off electrical appliances or devices when possible. Leave lights on. Walk to the closest safe stairway or exit. Do not prop or wedge doors open. If there is smoke present, stay low. If at a job site, go to the front street. If at a safe distance from the fire hazard, report to your supervisors so that it can determine if anyone is missing. Do not re-enter the building area until authorized. First aid. To get some instant first aid access to use prior to 911 arriving, or if there's a minor emergency and you can administer first aid, all workers should download the St. John's Ambulance app, where the first aid information can be searched and found quickly. Medical emergencies. In the case of medical emergencies, proper treatment of a serious injured person can save a life. In the case of an injury, do not move the victim until he can be placed on a stretcher, except if he is in further danger. Do not attempt to treat a seriously injured person unless you know what you're doing. If the person is not breathing, commence artificial respiration at once, making certain that the air passages are free. If the person's heart has gone into sudden cardiac arrest, only defibrillation will revive the person. There is only a 10-minute window to do this, as the brain without blood deteriorates 10% every minute it is without oxygen. If the victim is bleeding, evaluate the bleeding part and apply direct pressure. Loosen tight clothing at the neck, chest, and waist. Keep the injured person warm, but not above normal body temperature. Harassment policy. The definition of harassment is defined under the Saskatchewan Employment Act, sections 3 to 1, subsection 1, clause 1, is as follows. Harassment means an inappropriate conduct, comment, display, action, or gesture by a person towards a worker that either is based on any prohibited ground as defined in the Saskatchewan Human Rights Code from 2008, or any physical size or weight, or subject to subsections 4 and 5, adversely affects the worker's psychological or physical well-being, and that the person knows or ought For the purpose of subparagraph 1, harassment does not include any reasonable action that is taken by an employer or a manager or supervisor employed or engaged by an employer relating to the management and direction of the employer's work or the place of employment. For the purpose of Clause 1, subsections 4 and 5, Clause 3 to 8D, Clause 3 to 9C, and Clause 3 to 10B. A worker includes a person who is enrolled in secondary or post-secondary education institution and who is permitted by the employer directly or indirectly to perform work or services, or is being trained by an employer. A volunteer that an employer permits directly or indirectly to perform work or service, and an independent or dependent contractor. Worker right. Every worker is entitled to a working environment that is free of harassment. Employer obligation. This employer will ensure that no worker is subject to harassment at the place of employment. Worker obligation. No worker shall cause or participate in the harassment of another worker. Procedure. All complaints will be taken seriously. Rights of all concerned will be respected. Report concerns to either owner or safety department. Workers encouraged to use these steps to address incidents or alleged harassment internally. A worker who has believed that he or she has been subject to harassment is encouraged to first clearly and firmly make known to the alleged harasser that the harassment is objectionable and must stop. Where this cannot be done or is unsuccessful, the worker should report the alleged harassment to the employer. Once a person designated by the employer to receive complaints for harassment receives a complaint, that person shall immediately bring the complaint to the attention of the employer. The employer will notify the alleged harasser of the complaint, providing the alleged harasser with information concerning the circumstance of the complaint, and undertake a confidential investigation. Following the conclusions of the investigation, the employer will inform the complainant and the alleged harasser of the results of the investigation. Resolution and corrective action. Where harassment has been sustained, the employer will take appropriate corrective action to resolve the complaint. Where harassment has not been substantiated, no action will be taken against the worker who has made a complaint in good faith. Confidentiality. This employer will not disclose the identity of the worker or the circumstances of the complaint, except where disclosure is necessary for the purpose of the investigation or taking disciplinary action in relation to the complaint, or where such disclosure is required by law. External complaints. Nothing is in this policy prevents or discourages a worker from referring a harassment complaint to the Occupational Health and Safety Division under the Saskatchewan Employment Act and the Occupational Health and Safety Regulations, particularly sections 3 to 25. A worker may also file a complaint with the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission under the Saskatchewan Human Rights Code, particularly sections 16, 17, 18, and 27. A worker retains the right to exercise any other legal avenues available. Violence Policy Statement and Prevention Plan. Violence is the attempted, threatened, or actual conduct of a person that causes or is likely to cause an injury. This includes any threatening statements or behavior that gives a worker reasonable cause to believe the worker is at risk of an injury. Management, together with our supervisors, are responsible for protecting workers from workplace violence, and all workers, including students, independent and dependent contractors, and volunteers, must refrain from participating in or carrying out acts of violence. We must work together to create a safety culture and practices that eliminate workplace violence. Management will ensure all workers are aware of violent hazards and are properly trained to protect themselves, administrating the policy and ensuring that it is reviewed and updated as part of the management's regular duties. The review and updates will be done in collaboration with the Occupational Health and Safety Committee and Safety Manager. Workers must follow the procedures established to reduce the risks of violence and must immediately report all incidents to the company safety manager. Jobs at risk and locations. All field workers working on job sites, which would include working in the shop or yard, and all office staff are at risk of a violent situation. Violence can occur quickly and unexpectedly. We are committed to minimizing and eliminating the risk of workplace violence where possible, and give workers the tools, training, and awareness to prepare them, and reduce the impact of violence occurrences in the workplace. We are committed to providing a safe work environment that is free from violence. We recognize that workplace violence is a health and safety concern and will take all responsible precautions to prevent workplace violence to protect employees at the workplace. Administrating the policy and ensuring it is reviewed and updated is part of the management's regular duties. The review and updates will be done in collaboration with the Occupational Health and Safety Committee. Workers must follow the procedure established to reduce the risk of violence and must immediately report all incidents to the company safety manager. Management, together with our supervisors, are responsible for protecting workers from workplace violence, and all workers, including students, independent and dependent contractors, and volunteers, must refrain from participating in or carrying out acts of violence. We must work together to create a safety culture and practices to eliminate workplace violence. This violence policy applies to all workers and prohibits violence by any worker, including supervisors and co-workers, as well as person doing business with the company. Risk assessment. The company has conducted a risk assessment in preparation of this policy that considered the following potential risks: previous incidents of violence in the workplace, situations where employees interact with members of the public, situations where employees interact with subcontractors on site, situations that could arise between subcontractors on sites where we are the prime contractor, situations where there might be personality conflicts amongst workers employed with the company, effectiveness of emergency procedure for releasing contact phone numbers, names, and addresses of employees only to authorized individuals. Dealing with potentially violent individuals. Focus on emotions first. Remain calm. This may help the individual settle down. Avoid escalating the situation. If you are alone and the individual continues to behave in an agitated manner, stop talking and wait until they realize you're not responding. When your individual pauses, ask if they want a moment while you get your supervisor, or ask them to return when your supervisor is available. Give an exact time. If the individual refuses to leave and becomes increasingly agitated or threatening, beginning to back away towards other individuals who will hear the confrontation and be able to assist in diffusing the situation. Report violent incidents to your supervisor and the safety manager as soon as they occur. Use the incident report for workers to document and record the incident details immediately after the incident. All emergency phone numbers are available. Tasks to prevent violent incidents. All exit routes have been identified in the office and the shop. Carry your cell phone. Ensure all doors are locked to the office and shop at the end of working hours. Ensure that the property gates are closed and locked. Always be aware of the people you're working with and who are contacted to work on sites. If someone looks suspicious or likely do not belong, report to your supervisor the suspicious person or activity. Monitoring the effectiveness of control measures through safety inspections. Working alone. Follow our working alone plan and procedures. When driving alone, ensure everything needed is in front of the seat. Office workers, be sure to drive into parking lot with vehicle doors locked and windows rolled up. Scan the area for suspicious persons when entering the parking lot and before getting out of your vehicle. Ensuring parking in well-lit areas as close to your exit or entrance door as possible. Exit the vehicle when ready and safe to do so. Ensure vehicle is locked at all times. When returning to your vehicle, ensure you scan the area once you have exited the building and walk directly and quickly to your vehicle. Once in vehicle, lock all doors and keep windows up. Reporting violent incidents. Complete an incident report for workers as soon as you can after the incident. The forms can be found in Site Docs. Report the violent incident to your supervisor and ensure that you contact the safety manager as well. Investigating violent incidents. All violent incidents will be investigated by the safety manager in conjunction with the Occupational Health and Safety Committee, the OHC. The occupational health and safety representative or workers where there is no OHC or representative. The OHC representative or workers will make recommendations or corrective actions to prevent similar incidents from reoccurring. The employer or manager will document deficiencies and the appropriate changes will be made. Workers will be informed of the results of the investigation and of any changes in the policy and prevention plan that result. If changes require worker retraining, the training will be provided by the employer. Seeking medical aid for injury and post traumatic stress. It is recommended that the workers who have been affected by a violent incident consult a physician for treatment or obtain a referral for post incident counseling. If a worker seeks medical aid or counseling as a result of violent incident, injury report must be filed with the WCB. The worker must submit a W1 form and the employer must submit an E1 form. Commitment to providing training. The company will provide training on the following: how to prevent and minimize the risk of violence, how to recognize potentially violent situations, procedures, work practices, administrative arrangements, and engineering controls that have been developed for their protection, how to respond to violent incidents and obtain assistance, how to document, report, and investigate incidents of violence, procedures for reporting violent incidents. Training will also be provided when changes are made to the policy and or procedures. This policy and prevention plan is available in the resources section of Site Docs and will be reviewed and, if necessarily, revised every 3 years and whenever there is a change in circumstances that may affect the health and safety of our workers. Discipline process for violence. If violence occurs, the discipline policy will be followed. Violence is an act that is grounds for immediate dismissal at the discretion of management. OH&S Committee Representative. Ongoing success of safety program requires the involvement of people at all levels of the company. Communication among our people is essential. An effective vehicle for such communication is the safety representative. The safety representative is responsible for recommending solutions to safety problems. The owner always retain ultimate responsibility for safety. Duties of the representative may include: hold regular meetings with the owner to discuss health and safety issues, participate in the identification and control of health and safety hazards in or at the place of employment, conduct inspections and accident investigations, ensure the health and safety education programs are established and maintained at the work site, deal with worker concerns about workplace health and safety, Promote compliance, carry out the duties, and assist the employer to comply with the Saskatchewan Employment Act and regulations. Safety representative duties and responsibilities. Investigate work refusals under Section 23 of the Act. Assist in creating a safe workplace by setting a good example. Review all internal and external audits and make recommendations for further improvements or changes to the safety program. Please bring your concerns firstly to your supervisor. If that is someone you are unable to speak with, please speak with the worker occupational health and safety representative. Occupational Health and Safety Committee. A committee work includes the following tasks: helping employers identify, assess, and control hazards, making recommendations to the employer regarding improvements to workplace health and safety, talking with workers about health and safety concerns and helping to resolve these concerns, encouraging better communication between employers and workers, receiving and distributing information, including occupational health and safety division publications, regularly inspecting their workplaces, investigating reportable incidents and dangerous occurrences called near misses, helping to establish and promote health and safety program, policies, and training, investigate refusals to work, helping employers meet their requirements pursuant to the occupational health and safety legislation, and to motivate and maintain continuous safety awareness. Return to work. Preventing workplace injuries and illness is a responsibility of everyone at the workplace. Most injured workers can return to some type of work even while they are still recovering. Returning to daily work and life activities can help in the recovery process. In fact, research shows that the longer a worker is off due to illness or injury, the less likelihood there is of that person returning to work. We have a return to work program that complies with the legislation under the Workers' Compensation Act. Both workers and employers are obligated under the Act to mitigate damages from the workplace injury. Return to work is a cooperative process. Workers, employers, and healthcare professionals must all work together. Workers' responsibilities. If an injury occurs that requires medical attention, the worker or supervisor must contact the safety manager to notify of any medical aid treatment. Worker must advise the doctor that the company has a return to work program with modified duties and the ability to accommodate any and all modified work presented. Workers must obtain a medical note or restrictions from the doctor outlining the restrictions. Worker to call safety manager following initial doctor's visit. Worker to complete the incident report worker in safety app, which will be located on site docs, and the WCB information section filled out completely. Worker must show up for work the day after the incident unless otherwise cleared to stay home from the safety manager. Worker must review and sign the modified work offer. Worker must participate and cooperate in your return to work plan, which may include modified duties or new training. Worker must adhere to the restrictions provided by healthcare provider and work within current physical abilities. Worker must continue to follow safety regulations to avoid further injury. Worker must be in consistent communication with the safety manager regarding work abilities and restrictions until worker is released by medical team to full duties. Worker must report changes in condition or inability to perform modified duties presented. Worker, please note that you will not receive pay from either the company or WCB if no doctor's note is supplied regarding the injury and or restrictions. Employer's responsibilities. At the time the worker calls the safety manager, the worker will be advised and reminded of how the return to work or modified duties program works and the process for communication. If the opportunity presents, provide the worker with the modified duties form to take to the doctor's appointment. Report incident to WCB. Work with the worker, WCB, and healthcare professionals to facilitate a successful return to work and full recovery. Create a modified work offer that falls within restrictions provided by the healthcare professionals. Make changes to modified work and restrictions change or workability changes. Be in constant communication with worker, WCB, and healthcare professionals, working together to achieve a successful recovery for the worker. Environmental policy. Environmental management is a program to protect life, property, and the environment. This includes marital management systems that are implemented to mitigate excessive material usage, as well as systems to treat, reduce, and recover materials in our workplaces and work sites. We will utilize programs dedicated to reducing, reusing, recycling, and recovering of waste products instead of disposing of them. This company practices the 3 R's in committing to waste management. Reduce. Use bulk purchasing to lessen excessive packaging. Carefully plan work sites, layouts, and organize to eliminate excessiveness in moving materials, spillage, housekeeping, and waste. Use of propane or electrical power equipment to eliminate excessive emissions. Reuse. Store and reuse wooden pallets. Shorten lengths of materials instead of recycling them. Reuse fittings, piping, and other materials instead of disposing them and via recycling or waste. Recycle. Utilize local recyclers for paper products and cardboard. Recycle all scrap metals, fittings, and fixtures. Recycle all fluids and refrigerants. Closing the loop. Purchasing products that are less hazardous or contain recycled materials. Purchase recycled paper products and other items. Maintain equipment properly to lessen the environmental impact. Drug and alcohol policy. The company is committed to providing our employees, customers, and the public with a safe and healthy workplace. We recognize that the use of drugs and the misuse of alcohol and medications can limit an employee's ability to safely and effectively do their job and may adversely affect the ability of the person to work in a safe manner. The inappropriate use of alcohol and drugs can have serious adverse effects on the safety and well-being of workers, contractors, and the public. Awareness of the potential risks associated with the use of alcohol and drugs can assist in providing a safe, healthy, and reliable workplace. The purpose for this drug and alcohol policy is to promote the safety and dignity of our employees, the welfare of employees and their families, and the best interests of the construction industry and the public. The use of drugs and alcohol are strictly prohibited while working at company-owned facilities and work sites. As well, it is strictly prohibited to come to work under the influence, with a hangover or high. If a worker is found in possession of or under the influence of drugs or alcohol or both, they will be immediately removed from site and terminated. For your own safety and the safety of your co-workers, do not come to work impaired. Post-incident tests apply to all personnel, both directly and indirectly involved in the incident, and must be completed within 32 hours for drug testing and within 8 hours for alcohol testing. Reasonable cause testing. Where a supervisor or manager has reasonable cause to believe a worker is in possession or using drugs or alcohol in contravention of the drug and alcohol policy, the workers will be subject to drug and alcohol testing. Reasonable cause includes, but not limited to, discovery of illegal drugs or drug paraphernalia on company premise or vehicles, observation of or credible eyewitness information regarding physical or behavioral signs of impairment, unexplained failure to follow critical safety rules or procedures, where an employee's failure to correct chronic performance problems strongly suggests that the employee may be or is under the influence of alcohol or drugs at work. Contractually obligated testing. An employee may be tested when in the course of business as stipulated in contract between the company and its customer. Statutory testing. An employee may be subject to statutory testing as prescribed in legislation. Employees asked to provide samples of any of the above testing may be asked to provide urine, breath, or saliva samples for analysis. Thank you for your time and cooperation in making this company and our work sites accident free. Please now take time to complete the orientation checklist and write the quiz. Ensure we have copied all your safety and trade certificates, including your driver's license. Safety is everyone's business. Be safe today.